Exciting. Exciting. Oh, it's exciting to see you, Daniela. Last time we saw you, you were in Australia, so you're not in.
Yes, and I had an amazing dinner that you and Christine cooked for me. It was fantastic. I was so happy to be able to see you instead of our Zooms. But yes, and one of the things I always loved about you was your taste in music.
Oh, yeah,
fantastic taste in music.
Yeah.
So one of the first pre-questions I'd like to ask, what are your top 3 favorite musicians or genres that you like to listen to?
Oh, that's a tricky one. The top 3 favorites. My music tastes really depend on my mood and where I'm at, and I think my all-time favorite is jazz, different types of jazz. So sort of funk lounge jazz, sometimes the real hardcore jazz, the old world stuff is sort of like a bit much. But I think I have a love of jazz. I also have a love of classical, and I don't listen to it very often, but whenever I do, it just really uplifts me. And I don't know, I sort of go for songs rather. It's like, oh, that song's so cool. It's like, there's a song called Crabs in a Bucket, and it was like, oh my gosh, it's by Paloma Faith, and it's just, I love it. It's just got this thing to it, and it's or if I'm feeling glum or blue, I'll shove on Taylor Swift and go, shake it up, and I'll shake it up.
Oh yes, I love that.
So I think it depends. It depends on how I'm feeling on the day.
Oh, perfect. And I think that's what music brings us, is just what we're feeling at that exact moment and everything. Yeah. So yeah. I'm really happy to hear that. I love jazz as well, and I wish I could listen to more and learn more. So definitely you should send a list over to broaden my jazz horizon.
Did you want to learn a little bit of a fun fact here for people who are listening as well?
Yes, definitely. I love fun facts.
Okay, so I'm actually quite a musician, and I can play the piano, the guitar, the clarinet, the flute, the saxophone. I learned the clarinet for about 6-7 years and got to the highest level of clarinet exams and music exams when I was at college. And I used to play about 3 or 4 times a week at church in our music band. We had an actual sort of a rock band that we used to tour and do some music concerts and things like that. And so I was involved with that. I won a national music award with a group I put together at high school, and we went to a national music competition, and we won top group vocals. So I'm actually quite a muso, really.
Oh, perfect. And this is what I love about doing these Meet the Leader sessions, because it's a very casual chat on basically your journey in becoming an authentic leader. And I think having that, especially with being musically gifted, is just an amazing part of Dr. Elizabeth Pritchard. So of course, I'd love to introduce this session of Meet the Leader from WALT Institute. It's a 1-hour event where we go on a one-on-one conversation with an authentic leader, change maker, and expert. So usually our leaders will share their inspiring story to their journey. Plus you'll be able to hear their valuable hack tips and wisdom that definitely everybody would love to hear. So of course, today I'd love to welcome Dr. Elizabeth Pritchard, who is the co-founder of WALT Institute and as a music genius. As our featured guest. As our featured guest for our second session for Meet the Leader. She'll share how she didn't let her troubled past define who she is today and what she can achieve in the future. So welcome, Dr. Elizabeth Pritchard. I'm so happy that you're my guest today on July 1 on Friday. So everybody that's watching in Inner Circle and Leading Authentically, grab your favorite beverage and join us in a very casual one-on-one conversation. Let's get to know Dr. Elizabeth Pritchard more. So one of the things I've watched you in the Authentic Leading Summit that we had in May. And one of the things you always talked about was your past doesn't need to define you. So of course, with that quote, my curiosity clicked in. And I'd like to know, growing up, how were you during your childhood and teenage years?
Spill the beans, in other words.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, people often might not believe this, but I was really shy, reserved young girl. I was very wistful. I was not very brave. I was not very courageous. I was frequently scared about things. I did not like doing things new. I grew up with a lot of fear around me. And I also got into a whole lot of trouble, and I didn't know why. I was constantly getting into trouble at school. And when I was at intermediate and college, I often got detentions, and it was usually for talking in class or for doing something out of the box, or when I was at primary school, it was for doing things I honestly didn't know why I got into trouble. It was just bizarre. I found it bizarre. I felt really different. I had super long, white blonde, wispy hair, which my mother put in plaits usually. It was usually plaited, or sometimes it was pulled up, well, the plait pulled up, which I hated. She did my hair. And I felt different. My clothes were different. The beliefs that I grew up with was very different from people at school. And I just felt that I didn't fit. And so my childhood and teenage years was always around that. I didn't really have very many friends. I had one or two occasional friends, and I just, yeah, absolutely felt like I didn't fit the mold. I didn't fit the box. I didn't fit in with the others. And I had a very sheltered upbringing as well. So it was very, very religious and very sheltered upbringing. In coming through all of my things, and that again set me apart and set me to that stage of, you're different, you don't fit in, who do you think you are, sort of thing. And so that was very much who I was as a child and teenager.
So with knowing that you didn't fit in growing up, how did you think having that experience, having that label for yourself that you didn't fit in with your family, you're in school with friends, how do you think that shaped you, who you are today?
Well, I think it shaped me hugely. It absolutely shaped me hugely. So I'm the youngest of 9. And no, we're not Catholic, but that's okay. Oh, you must have been Catholic. It was like, no. It's actually a beautiful story that I only found out in about the last 10 years of my life, that my dad was an only child. His dad died in the First World War, going off to war, and he was 6 weeks old. And so he was sort of brought up as an only child. And his mum remarried, because in those days, in the 1917 to 20, that sort of thing, women didn't live alone, didn't survive very well if they were single parents. And so she remarried quite quickly, and the new man was not very nice to dad. So he was very sort of isolated and quite separate from any community or connection with people, and went at a young age and lived with his aunties. And so for dad, it was super important to have family. And mum just loved babies. So she just, once they got to about 2, the older children looked after the other ones. and so she just loved babies, because she just loved that whole sort of 0 to 2. And so she'd have another baby. And so they grew their family purposefully. And I think that was beautiful. And I never knew that till later. And I just think that was gorgeous. And so getting back to your question, how did it shape me? It shaped me hugely, because I felt like an outsider. I needed to find my way to who I was being. I needed to work out who I was inside, because I spent all my teenage years and my 20s and my 30s being what I thought I should be, being the picture of what I was supposed to be, creating my life around all the societal norms, like women get married and have children, not a career. So I went and did a bit of training, and I qualified as an occupational therapist. And then I planned to work for a couple of years, have babies, and be at home, be a full-time mum forever. I never thought beyond that. And that was the way that I was brought up. That was my understanding of life and my societal norms in that stage. And so that's what I thought was me. And when I got, when my daughter was sort of about 6 months old, my first daughter, I was like, is this it? I don't want to be like this. And again, I felt like I wasn't fitting in because I was going against the grain. I was doing it differently and I was seeing a different pathway for me. And I think all of those early stages, some early events, some early traumas, all types of things that are me, have made me who I am today. And I'm really quite grateful for those and working through those on the way through.
Of course, in life, we just don't stop there. We just keep growing and growing. And if you do stop, I always say, like, we're not living anymore. So having said that, would you say that would be the hardest lesson you've learned, or was there something that was even more harder to learn growing up?
I think being an outsider was a big part of the toughness of me growing up and helping to create who I am today. And I think the other thing was that I learned at the age of 8 not to trust adults. And that happened through a sort of a rather large event in my life, which I don't often talk about, but I want to know. So I was sexually abused by a family friend who was like a grandfather to me. And I learned, because growing up in my very religious home, you obeyed like this. You never talked back. You never even huffed. And I remember once I went, huh, and it was like, whack. Those were the days.
Yeah, children are seen, not heard.
Absolutely. Children, absolutely. Particularly the youngest of 9. It was like there were way too many voices in the home already. You just sit over there and play. And so I learned to go against that when this person obliterated my trust in adults. And for me, it was a time of huge confusion because I didn't know how to make sense of that. I didn't know how to make sense of, but this is who I am. It was like an adult says this and I was like, yes, okay, 3 bags full. This is what we do. This is how we do it. We go over here, we do this. And being in that situation where I was like, I can't trust every adult. Oh my gosh, what do I do now? It's only in later years, in the last decade or the last 15 years, that I've sort of become to make sense of that it helped me distrust people. That was the first thing. And so I had to learn how to trust people again. And I also sort of blew things apart from, you don't have to just go with what somebody says. Question it, be curious, work out what it is for me. Does it fit with me? Does it align with my principles? Does it align with who I'm being? And so it's very much, now that I think about it, and I hadn't really thought about it even until you sent me the questions. It was like, yeah, it actually helps me to recognize why I'm distrustful and how I can build trust with people for myself so they trust me, but also so I can trust them.
So the question I have, when you said distrusting adults, someone who's experienced it as well, when you became an adult, did you feel that you also distrusted yourself?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And like the very typical obvious thing for any child, and I only learned this in the last sort of decade or so, it was like the very obvious thing for children is to blame themselves. It was like, oh my gosh, I did something wrong. I should have said no. I should have pushed them away. I should have, could have, would have. It was like a child cannot do anything against an adult. It's a total power play. It is the adult's fault. 100%, 6,000%. It is not the child ever. And recognizing that and coming through that, I mean, it's taken me decades to trust myself. It's only been in the last decade that I trust who I am, that I trust I make good decisions, that I trust that I can work things out no matter what. It's only been the last decade. And I think that's a huge part of who I am and why I do what I do.
Exactly. And, you know, for me, like, what would be the secret behind navigating to trusting yourself, this lesson that you had to learn, you know, by yourself? You know, you didn't have an adult or your parents or, you know, to support you. You had to learn it from yourself. So what would be the secret behind it, or maybe the way you did it?
Until you asked me that question, I had no freaking idea. No. I was like, how did I do it? How would I do it? Through a lot of tears, a lot of heartache, a lot of pain. How did I do it? I always knew I was different, and I liked that to some degree. However, that led me to totally and absolutely believing for decades, until I was in my late 40s, that I was never good enough. I didn't deserve good things. And it's only in understanding that a little bit more from the way of like, right, well, this is where I am right now. Let's go forward from here. So what we do and what we teach is not about let's delve into the pain of it. It's not traditional psychology and make sense of it and la 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 la. It's like, who am I here right now? This is all part of the fabric of me and who I be. And some of the threads in my life might be black, might be purple, might be green, might be pink, might be red. They might be sparkly. They might be thick and lumpy. They might be smooth and silky. And I have learned to accept those as part of me and recognize and trust me that I am enough, that it's not about what I do or what I accomplish. Initially it was like, I have to prove that I'm not dumb, because everybody used to call me dumb blonde. And yeah, it was jokingly, but still it got in ever since I was a little tacker. And so I embarked on a master's to prove to them that I wasn't dumb. And then later on, I discovered an absolute love of learning. And I recognized that it doesn't matter what I do. It's who I be in the moment. It's, am I being authentically me? Am I being honest and open and vulnerable and compassionate and fun and curious and joyful? And am I being adventurous? Because all of those things are me. And recognizing that and coming through the whole thing of navigating the hard stuff and going, so what's the secret? It was like, I remember the moment I believed I was enough. I remember the room. I know exactly the room where I was. I was at a 2-day retreat. It was December 2016. Yeah, 2016. And I remember where I was. It was a 2-day retreat. It was for some R&R. It was in the middle of a whole lot of other stuff. And it was just like, oh, and they took us through this activity, and it wasn't really about I'm enough, but I got this massive clear image and sort of internal message that was like, oh my gosh, I'm enough. I don't have to keep striving. I don't have to keep pushing. I don't have to keep making metrics. I don't have to keep doing this or doing that, or pretending to be this or pretending to do that, or like this and pretend to like that. Because my whole life is based on pretense and bullshit. Exactly. And within that, it's like, I am enough. And for me, that is my secret. And that only happened 2016.
That's amazing. You know, when definitely with the programs of WALT Institute and everything that you and Christine have done, I've always known the emphasis is that I am enough. This is who I be. I'm authentic. This is who I am. So with what you were talking about, being enough, being true to myself, being authentic, what are the other 3 things you do every day that contributes to your success? What are the 3 things that are so important to you that you bring to every meeting, to every social event, or even just waking up and you're just like, this is the 3 things? What would that be?
Yeah, they've changed over the years. I never even thought about things like this. I remember having a conversation with Christine, and I think it was like 2006 or 2007. And I remember having a conversation with her real poignantly, and she went, well, when you're in a sports team, you go out there with a game plan, and you go out there that you're going to do this, you're going to do that, and you're going to do this, you're going to pass it to you, and you're going to do this, and you play the game, and that's what you do. You stick to your game plan and you win. Now, I remember standing there and going, seriously, don't you just go out and just play? And she went, no, you have a game plan. You have strategies. You know exactly what's going to happen. You do this and then you do that. And when this happens, you do this and you do it. And if you're going to have a penalty stroke, you do this, blah, blah. It was like, oh my gosh, I'm obviously not a sports person. I enjoy sports, but I've never played at a competitive level. And it's like, I didn't know that. And this whole thing sort of opened up to me, thinking that, oh my gosh, so does that mean that I can be intentional with my life? Because up until that moment, I absolutely, totally believed that things happened to me. It was like, if that job happened, well, it happened to me. If this opportunity happened, it happened to me. If sickness or illness in the family happened, this happened to me. My child was home from school and I couldn't go and present at a conference, it happened to me. And I absolutely believe that stuff out there controlled what happened. And I had no control. And within that, I was thinking, oh, this is just not about me. This is about stuff out there. And coming into that whole thing in the last few years of purposefully, intentionally, and consciously setting my intention for who I'm going to be every day is mind-blowingly simple, but also mind-blowingly powerful. And that's what I do every day. I get out of bed, I stretch, and I do thankfulness and gratitude. I'm thankful and grateful for vibrant health in every cell of my body and my optic nerve. For those who've been following our posts, they'll know that I have some challenges around my optic nerves. And so within that, it's like I do that. And then I meditate. I never used to take moments to pause or be still. Never, because you always had to do things because I was never good enough, so I had to keep doing. And so I've learned to meditate. And then I get in my exercise gear and I go and exercise. I either go for a walk or I do a workout or I do some yoga, or at the moment, we go to the park at 2 degrees or 5 degrees, do a workout, or go in the garage and do a workout, whatever. It's like, I know now that I need to move. I never knew those things before. I would sort of stumble out of bed 40 minutes before I had to be anywhere and sort of rush through everything and rush out the door, be grumpy, be shitty. I didn't choose my moods. I didn't set myself up. I didn't choose my intention or set my intention before anything I did. And now I do this all the time. Doesn't mean it's easy to get out of bed at 2 degrees in the morning.
Yeah, that would be hard. I used to live in France, and I would remember just waking up and you just feel your hair nostrils just like, oh gosh, it's just so cold. So,
Yeah.
I love hearing that because it's so refreshing that, you know, sometimes when I hear people like, oh, I wake up and I just have this great attitude, I'm just like, but how? I'd love for people to take us to that journey, because it is challenging just waking up. You know, you can't control the weather. If it's too cold or too hot, sometimes you may miss your alarm. So I love hearing that you discovered this rhythm, this journey of waking up, and it really worked out, and you contribute that to your success. And learning to meditate definitely is, for me, is a must. Having that, even a 5-minute pause, and just bringing yourself back together, and having, just feeling every bone crack or waking up as well. So when we talk about success, I'd love to know, do you have a person who had a tremendous impact on you as a leader, going through this journey? Maybe someone who was a mentor and who not only impacted your life, but also gave the passion behind WALT Institute.
People who have people like that in their lives, there are, and I think I see this in my pre-video, there are certain personality type. There's certain personality types who have people that they go, oh my gosh, this person's amazing, and they help me direct my life. I've never been that sort of person. I'm like, and as I've sort of been talking a little bit about my life a little bit, you probably got that I sort of felt like I was at the beck and call of everything else out there. So why should I actually go, oh, this person does some cool stuff, maybe I could do that, or this person does some cool stuff over here, maybe I could learn from them and grow and develop from them. So to me, there's sort of a couple of questions here within the question. One is do I have any person in my life who had a tremendous impact? And I think one of the first people in my life who had a tremendous impact was called Jan. And Jan Jackson, I'm still in touch with her. She was the operations manager at the rehab unit that I started with, working when I was an occupational therapist, a new grad. And then that was in 1984. And then our paths crossed again in the 90s. And 2 children and a few other jobs later, and coming back to a different place. She was in a different place in a health department, and in a hospital unit working with the elderly, and I was in there as well. And so our paths crossed again, and she was the operations manager for the whole of the elderly services, rehab, assessment and treatment. And in working there, she was my manager. And I think for the first time, I got a glimpse of, well, great, wonderful glimpse, a great big spotlight on my face, really, of how an authentic leader could be. She was so upfront. She would call it as it is. She'd go, Elizabeth, you can't do it like that. This is what's happening. This is why it's happening. You need to do it like this. I'll help you do it like that. I was like, okay, cool. And I learned to take direct feedback. I learned that she was on my side. She was on my side so much that over those few years that I worked with her, there ended up to be Alice, Jean, and Jan. So there was those 3 and myself, Elizabeth. And so there was 4 of us. And we have had a friendship for over 38 years.
Wow.
And we're still in touch. One of them have died. Jean has passed on. And Alice and Jan are still very much in New Zealand doing their thing, being amazing. Jan's retired. Alice is coming up to retirement. We were all up to decades. So at one time there was like 80, 70, 60 and 50. We were all in different decades. And I think the power of that helped me recognize that there are some people in the world who want to support me. Because coming through my childhood and the things and the challenges that have come through, I pushed it away because I didn't trust anybody. So I would push away the support, and I would sort of think, well, I don't deserve that. They won't support me, all of that type of thing. And it's like within that, I think that I pushed the support away, but because of working with Jan, I began learning that there were people in the world who were interested in me. There were people in the world who accepted me for being me, not because I was the mother of 2 children or the wife of someone, or I did this role or I did that role. It was just totally just being me. And that was hugely powerful for me. I I don't know if I created that. I don't know. I may have done. But that was hugely powerful for me. And I think in relation to WALT Institute, it's like, it's come through a massive journey as well. It's absolutely come through a different sort of journey, because there wasn't any one person that I can say, oh, yep, they were the person that created this for me and or helped us do that. It was different people at different times. And I think what I've learned also is that I can be open to recognizing that this person has come across my pathway, and that it's just in the right amazing time, if I can see it, if I'm open to it, if I'm open, I'm curious. And it's beautiful, because it's like, oh, that person came into my life for 2 months or 6 months or 3 years, and that's beautiful, and they've helped encourage me in this way, and I've learned from them about this. And it was totally in different times and different ways. There's not been one person that it's like, oh my gosh, this is the person who's our massive champion. We do have champions in our arena. It's awesome. We have Paul and Ronnie Wood, Professor Paul Wood and his wife Ronnie Wood, and they are wonderful in the world of STEM. They're definitely champions on our side. And it's wonderful, and they've given us wisdom and helped guide and support. But right at the inception, it was like, I was still working on this, but I'm isolated and nobody supports me. So I was still doing it on my own.
So do you feel like when with WALT Institute, did you experience any obstacles on the way with developing WALT Institute, and how did you overcome them? Especially when you were talking about that you were going through also learning not to isolate yourself, and to be open and to be trusting and to receive feedback. So what would be the obstacles you experienced with starting WALT Institute?
Everything. Everything.
How did you go through them? What would be how would you view those experiences today with everything that became an obstacle? What would be the tips and wisdom of starting something you were so passionate about?
I think sometimes what you don't know, not knowing what you don't know is sometimes a good thing, because naivety can sometimes be great. Yes. Because you just go, I can do this. Nobody can stop me. Of course I can do this. What do you mean? Oh, of course I can do this. Oh, I can do this. I can do this. And so naivety is a great impetus sometimes in pursuing something and jumping in and just doing it. Because if we'd known all the stuff about like what we're doing now, sort of 7 years later from the inception of the idea, it's like if we'd known that way back then, we may not have kept going. We may have thought, oh, I can't do that, because we hadn't grown and developed to be able to do that. And so I think that's something that people let themselves get caught up in. It's like, but to do that, I have to do this and have to do that. It was like, yeah, but if you're being this and you keep being that, then you'll get there, because you're learning and growing along the way. And of course you can't be that entity or role or job or whatever it is at this time, because you're not that person yet. And so recognizing that and understanding that right back at the beginning is quite valuable. The other things is like, we've had everything. We went and did it ourselves. And so it was like, okay, we'll create all this amazing content. We spent a year making content and never sold a thing, because we never sold it, because we didn't sell. We were making content. It was like, anybody who creates business now, business 101, just get on with it, sell something, create it. And so it was like, okay, we didn't know that then. And so that was huge. So we had this amazing program and we never sold it because we just never put it out for sale. And so we did that. We had all sorts of things. Lack of knowledge, coming up against lack of belief of, can I actually do this? Do I know what I'm doing? No, we don't know what we're doing. So we need to learn, need to grow, need to develop, need to find who do I know who can show me how to do this, who can teach me how to do this, who can do this for me. And so there's been so many things we've learned along the way, and so many things I've learned along the way. And even just in the last 5 years, because we began our business as heroic development, growing heroes. And then it morphed into Authentic Leadership Training Institute, and that was too long. And then it became WALT Institute, so Women Authentic Leadership Training. And we train men and women, but we're women. And our emphasis is to empower women in STEM across the world. And within that, it's like, if I don't know how to do whatever needs to be done here, that's okay. If it's new, if it's different, I've never done it before. Okay, that's cool. What have I done before? And I've done a shit ton of things before. I've done so many things the first time in my life. Every single day I've done things for the first time in my life. And so recognizing that and growing that and believing in myself and knowing that I am enough. I don't have to do this. I don't have to do anything. I choose to do it because I'm here for a reason. I'm here to impart my passion and my inspiration to people so that I can lift them up and they can lift themselves up and be empowered and go and do their amazing things. That sort of pulls me along for who I'm being.
That's amazing. You know, when we're so scared to start new things because it's out of the comfort zone and everything. So when you start new things, of course, there are risks that you have to consider. And what would you say would be the biggest risk you took with starting WALT Institute?
The biggest risk. The biggest risk. Well, I suppose the biggest risk is that it's going to fail. That's the biggest risk. Biggest risk of trying anything new. And yeah, I did say trying because it's what we do. It's like, I think that's the biggest risk, that it fails. And what we can learn from that is like, so what? Fails. You know, Edison never created the light bulb that's around me. The heater that happens. The internet never got created on the first go. It's like, so what? It's like, oh, that didn't work. What next? And I've learned to recognize that. I mean, we've had lots of things that have fallen over or failed or not worked or not happened the way we thought it would. We mentioned expectations before, Daniela. It was like it didn't live up to what we expected was supposed to happen. And it was like, I've learned to go, oh, crap, that's a bit poo. Have a little bit of a tanty, and I refine it to a small time frame. And then it's like, okay, so what next? Where do we go from here?
Would you say, like, what would be the image that would come to your head for failure? You know, people say it's just like, okay, that's it. There's no continuing. Do you feel there's a continuing part, even if failure was involved? Like, what would you say? What would be your advice on people who are scared to take that leap because of just the word failure alone? So what would be your great advice on that?
Well, there's no such thing as failure unless you don't get up again. Because like failure is just like another word for this didn't work. What next? This didn't work. How can I do it again? How can I tweak it? How can I change it? How can I morph it? To me, part of the limitations of my beliefs in coming through my 20s, 30s, and 40s were apart from the fact I wasn't enough. I had the second adage, the second huge belief that I'm a failure. It was like at one stage, and I remember looking back on it, it was somebody confronted me with it when I was going, oh, but I'm just such a failure. I had two beautiful grown-up children. I had people around me who did love me. I had a home. I had this role within a national organisation. I was the president of New Zealand Association of Occupational Therapists. I was a respected manager in our organisation across the whole of the bottom of New Zealand in the health department. I was involved in policy development. I was involved in clinical audits. I was involved in supervision and coaching of people and presentation. I was respected. I had the stuff that people would say was successful, and yet I felt so inadequate and I felt such a failure. And I remember I kept on saying, I'm a failure. And when one of my children would have a tantrum or do something crazy or not do what I wanted them to do, or we had an argument or a screaming match or got really angry with each other or whatever, or talked past each other, in those moments, it was like my instant thing was, I'm a failure. I'm such a failure as a parent. I'm such a failure as a mum. I'm such a failure as this. I'm such a failure as that. And it became entrenched in a huge belief entwined with that whole thing of, I'm not good enough because I'm a failure and I don't deserve it anyway. And so working through that, how do I do that? I've learned to recognize that it's bullshit. I've learned to recognize that it's the past wanting just to keep me safe. I've learned to recognize I don't need to stay in it. I have the tools, I have the skills, I have the abilities, I have the strategies to kick it to the side and keep on going. And I even just this week, I've had like 3 things that have just hit me in the face. And yeah, one of the times there was a bit of tears that I shared with some people as well, because I was disappointed in something that happened, and it was like, oh, I put my heart and soul into this and it didn't work out the way I wanted it to. And yeah, I have those moments of absolutely going, I'm disappointed, I'm sad, I'm upset, I'm annoyed, I'm frustrated. And I've learned to quickly kick it to the curb and go, okay, where to from here? And I surprise myself sometimes, just even in the last 6-12 months, I surprised myself and I was like, holy crap, is that me? did I just move on from that quickly? It was like, seriously, I never used to do that. And I don't do it all the time. However, I do it more and more and more and more solidly and consistently.
It's amazing. You know, when we talk about sometimes when life hits you in the face and you don't know how to react, you cry, you're frustrated. One of the great things my husband Matt did was, I was so frustrated about something, and he said, at least you're frustrated about something, you care about something, you're passionate about something. So what are you going to do about it? And that's basically what I learned also from WALT Institute. Okay, it happened. Now what are you going to do? And I think that's what the message here is. You know, failing is basically when you just stop trying and you just, okay, I'm done. Yeah. It's basically, how do you evolve from that? And you can even say, okay, I'm done, but where do you go from there? It's just basically this next story to it.
Absolutely. So I love that. That you wouldn't feel the emotional reaction if you didn't care. Absolutely.
Exactly. Yes, and you know, definitely what I've learned from WALT Institute is we love and we care and we connect and we have fun doing it as well.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So of course, looking back,
quote unquote, if it's
we got to put the fun part. So looking back in your life and the things you've experienced is amazing. And, you know, I feel every story has a lesson that we all learn. And that's what I love doing about Meet the Leader session. It's not like they woke up and they became successful. They knew who they were. No, it's a growing journey, up and down, go circle, go back. It's just a journey. What would you say would be the 3 words that you would like to be recognized for? Like, if you could sum up your life and sum up who Dr. Elizabeth Pritchard is, what would be the 3 words?
That's a tricky one.
I'm throwing curveballs.
I think one of them would be vibrant. I love color. I love vibrancy. I love noise. I love music. I love texture. I love the whole gambit of things, not just sort of floating through. I love the whole gambit and the extension of textures and people and opportunities and diversity. I love that. So I think it's vibrant. Vibrancy or vibrant is one of them. I think one of them has to be compassionate. And I used to think compassionate was such a wussy word. It was like compassion, yeah, whatever. If you're compassionate, it's like, yeah, you then give everybody the authority to walk over you and just do whatever, because you're going to be compassionate and you're going to be so nice, blah, blah, blah. I used to think that. However, I have learned that compassion is freaking hard. It's for those people who are tough and gritty and consistent and bloody minded and absolutely want to share joy and compassion and openness with other people. So I think there has to be compassionate. And I think the other one is courage or courageousness. Over the last 5 years of my life, when I've been doing this growth and development for myself, and I will never stop growing and expanding, and I love it.
That would be your fourth word.
I think the courage is about whatever happens, let's just do it. And I have seen and recognized how courageous I have been in my life. I didn't recognize that before. And like, yeah, I can still go, oh shit, I have to ring this person, and that's a little bit scary. I was like, yeah, I'm just going to do it. I was like, exactly. Oh, I need to go and speak to these people or do this training here. It was like, oh, it's a bit scary. It's a bit exciting. I've never been here before. And I've got all these things behind that I have done. It's just this and this I don't know yet. And I'll go and do it. And even, as I said, just in the last few months, I'm surprising myself at how I will just do it. It was like courage. Wow.
Courage. Word of the day, courage. I love that. That's amazing. You know, it's so hard, especially nowadays, you know, with the pandemic and everything. That's the uncertainty of the world. To be courageous, to have courage it's a big thing. And people want to go into their little comfort zone of what they're knowing and what they can put up with. And they're so scared to go beyond that. So I love hearing that, those three words: vibrant, compassionate, courage. You know, it's words that we don't hear lately. And I love that you carry through that. You carry yourself through that and still continue throughout your journey. So my next question would be, what would be your next mission or calling with those three words behind you: vibrant, compassionate, and courageous? That you next mission and calling that you'd like to share with the group. What would be the next big thing for you?
So the next best thing, and I have to say we, because we're a team and you're part of the team, Daniela. We have this vision, and it's definitely mine as well. And I'll talk a little bit about that as well, where it came from. It's like we have this vision to give so much to the world, to serve the world so much, that we have this world for global domination in relation to people being empowered to stand in their truth and be their authentic selves. Now, for me, that has come, I remember being a 4-year-old and thinking, and I said it a couple of times and got shut down, so I never said it again for years. I'm thinking that I'm going to change the world. And I got this whole thing of, who are you to change the world? You're too little to change the world. What do you mean change the world? Only really important people change the world. And so I shut that down and I hid my light for decades. And now, watch out, people, because I believe I am enough. I have my vibrant compassion and courage, and I believe that I have a message to help empower people. And people can choose to take that on or not. That's absolutely fine. That doesn't worry me at all. And some people will love it and some people will hate it. That's absolutely fine. That doesn't worry me at all. And I'm still going to keep going with courage and vibrancy and compassion to share my truths, to share my strategies, to share what I've learned about myself and my life. And if you take something from that, then that is just beautiful, because I'm here to serve you. I'm here to serve the world.
That is amazing. I love that. We do have some few questions since our 1 hour is almost up from the Leading Authentically group. So definitely, Dr. Elizabeth, what advice would you give your younger self from who you are now?
Oh, what advice would I give myself? I've done this a couple of times in a couple of exercises that we do, actually, writing to myself as a young child. And I think a couple of those things, when I do that, I see myself as a young child. And so I was sort of averagest height, build to other children in my age group with long, white, blonde, wispy hair and braids. And I had this massive gap between my teeth in my youth. And I used to feel so self-conscious about it. However, I have this image of me, and I got my first glasses when I was 6. So I remember the little blue framed glasses that I had when I was 6 with wispy little hair and my big hole in my tooth, big gap in my tooth. And it's like, but I can do something. I'm here for something, and I'm here for a reason. And I have this thing that I can go forward but I don't know how. And so what I would do is I'd tell that 6-year-old, believe in yourself. You have the most unique, amazing gifts that no one on this planet has. We can all learn skills and talents and abilities, but my innate strengths and my gifts that are within me, no one else on the planet has it like me. No one. Not a single solitary person. People might have them similar, but no one has it like that. And I would tell that 6-year-old, no matter what happens to you in your life, no matter who abuses you, betrays your trust, no matter who dims your light, no matter who tells you you can't do it, you don't believe them. You believe that yourself inside. You believe this in here. You are always enough. Every single step of the way, you are always enough. You do not have to prove it. You are always enough. Be you. That's what I tell my little self.
Oh, that's gorgeous. I love that. And I think everyone needs to hear that and always be reminded, be yourself. And it's 2 words that you think is so easy to do, but it's actually really hard for people, because sometimes people need to people please, or oh, I'm too scared, or not having that courage. But so definitely that advice is so beautiful, and learning from your journey and your experience on having that is amazing. So the next question, I like this question. Who would you want to play you in a movie of your life?
Who would I want to play me? Ooh. Oh, I might lean actually to Anne Hathaway.
Oh, yes, definitely.
I like Anne Hathaway. I quite like her quirkiness, her sort of edginess, her ability to sort of really go into be intense. Sometimes she's really intense, and sometimes I'm really intense. I was having communications with my team the other day, and Christine said to me, you might want to sort of go back and do it, add to that around blah, 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 and potentially do this and potentially mention this. And I was going, why? And she goes, well, you think you might be coming across a little bit too intense. I was like, oh. So I can be a bit intense, absolutely. And
but I love intensity. It builds character, and it's just this is amazing, aspect. When you like, especially an actress, like the intensity, like it's an intense role or an intense acting scene. Definitely, I can definitely see Anne Hathaway playing you in your amazing life. Oh my gosh, she'd be
I think that would
brilliant.
be cool. That would be cool because she can also be a slob, and she can also be quite sort of refined and sort of everything in between. And she's got this beautiful breadth of continuum. That's what I quite like about her.
I love it. Another question that's popping up is, what 3 items would you take with you on a deserted island?
My hair
When you
dryer.
come to Boracay here, which always runs out of internet and electricity, what would you bring?
Yeah. Take my hair dryer, but then I'd have to take a generator to have my hair dry, so that might not work. What 3 items would I take? Oh, it's tricky. I like comfort. I like comfort. So if it was a desert island, I'd have to take something comfortable to sleep on. So that would have to be one thing. I'd definitely take a sharp knife because I wouldn't be able to eat or do anything like that without a sharp knife, kill the fish or whatever. And what's the other item? Oh, my head's going. Fresh, clean water, of course. So a desalinization unit. So I can have fresh water. And my other part of me, my creative part of me is like, take a camera because it's going to look beautiful and you want to take photos.
I love that. I love that. Oh my gosh. So when you come to Boracay, no, it's okay. Boracay it's well equipped. So
Awesome. I can have a nice comfy bed.
Exactly. Oh, that's really important. Actually, one of the things I really want to invest is a really nice mattress. For me, sleep is very important. I have to be comfortable. So I love hearing that we share that comfort and just having a comfy mattress is vital to us. So
absolutely.
we're running out of time. We have one more question, and I definitely would love to wrap up this amazing journey of Dr. Elizabeth Pritchard with Meet the Leader series. You know, we can't wait to hear from you more. But definitely, how do you define success?
Ooh. So in the short, success is not what you do, it's who you be. And when you align who you be with your values, then you're successful.
That's amazing. Oh, that's beautiful.
There you go.
Wow. That is success right there. And I think for me, success, when you say that, is success of knowing yourself. And I think that's really a hard thing that people go through, and it's who you be. And, you know, now, especially after YAS training, I always go through like, who do I be in this situation? Who do I want to be in this situation? It's not how, it's who do I be? So amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Elizabeth Pritchard, for joining our second session for Meet the Leader with WALT Institute on this beautiful Friday evening. I hope everybody has enjoyed. We definitely would love to catch up more and do our lives from inner circle to leading authentically with our other change makers, authentic leaders, and experts. Thank you so much, Dr. Elizabeth Pritchard. I hope you have a great evening and wonderful weekend.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for watching.
Thank you.
Yeah.